You know, some people say that ending up in an old folks' home is a fate worse than death, but this time it's actually true. When Max gets caught breaking the law, he's given a choice to either get thrown in a cell or spend the next 4 months doing community service at the local nursing home. But he's about to realize that jail would have been the better option. The place seems normal at first, but it isn't long before he starts to unravel a dark conspiracy hiding in plain sight, with twisted experiments, mysterious deaths, and an insane cult that's secretly behind it all. So we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the elderly cult in the home. This nursing home is hiding a dark secret. Late one night somewhere in the big city, we find this graffiti artist, Max, getting arrested just as he's finishing up his latest masterpiece. When his father, Cooper, comes to bail him out, he says that he pulled a few strings to keep Max out of jail, but in return, he'll have to do 4 months of community service at a nearby retirement home. It's better than getting thrown in the slammer, or at least that's what he thinks, but taking this deal is about to be his biggest mistake. After a long cab ride through the woods, he arrives at home and takes a look around when he notices one of the creepy patients watching him through a window. Inside, he's introduced to the other employees who give him a master key and a quick breakdown of the rules, warning him to stay away from the patients on the 4th floor. He's doing his rounds for the first time when he hears a strange groaning coming from one of the rooms, and worried, he peeks inside only to realize that it's just 2 freaky old people getting it on. So he quickly bounces out of there without interrupting. Later on that night, he wakes up from a restless sleep to the sound of somebody screaming, but he isn't really sure if he's heard it or if it was just in his head, you know, that kind of thing. That's when he looks at the door and notices that it's cracked open, but he locks it again and goes back to sleep without giving it any thought. Alright, there's definitely something weird happening with this place, and I'm not just talking about the old people getting it on, but the thing is, Max wouldn't even be here if he could just stay out of trouble, and it seems like his parents are actually partly to blame. Like, Max was just 11 years old when his foster brother Luke passed away while at college, but his parents just dropped the news on him with absolutely no preparation. That's the kind of stuff that traumatizes a kid for life, and he should have been in therapy from the jump so he could learn to process his emotions in a healthy way. Now, being trapped on Boomer Shutter Island is bad enough, but the first thing that I'd actually be concerned about was this weird-ass dummy that he found in the closet earlier that day. That's something you'd expect to find in a research lab or like a biology classroom, not a nursing home. And if someone here is doing experiments on human anatomy, I would hate to find out why. But finding my bedroom door open is where I draw the line, Chief. I don't need any of these creepy-ass old people sneaking up on me in the middle of the night. So the first thing I'd do is start with the lock. This looks like the push-button type that you'd find inside of a regular house, and those can be easily bypassed with nothing but a paper clip, so we need to upgrade. But the staff might not let him change the lock himself, so for now he needs to wedge a chair against the handle when he goes to sleep, then go online, order a portable door jamb for about $30 and call it a night. That should keep him safe overnight, but I'd want to know if anyone came around snooping during the day. So for that, he should tape a single piece of string to the top of the door frame and leave everything in his room placed in a very specific way. Then if he comes back to find that string missing or that any of his things have been moved, he'll know that someone's been going through his shit. Now, there's no reason to do anything crazy yet, so for now, his best bet is to keep a low profile and start making friends with the patients to see if he can learn anything else. The next morning, Max wakes up to one of the residents already banging on the door. Apparently, there's a cleanup needed in the rec room, but when he gets there, he realizes that it's just the old people throwing him a welcome party. Introducing himself as Lou, the man explains that they wanted to show their support after hearing about his rough first day. But as they all go back to their various activities, Max gets a weird vibe from this one old lady who randomly stares him down and sticks out her tongue. It's definitely strange, but he's sidetracked again by the head honcho, Dr. Sabin, who introduces himself and compliments Max on his big, healthy eyes. It seems like even the doctor here is a bit of an oddball, but nothing could ever prepare him for just how insane this place is about to get. That night, Max wakes up from another terrible nightmare to the sound of music, this time coming from somewhere down the hall. Curious, he gets up and follows the noise back to the rec room where he spots an elderly couple dancing to celebrate their anniversary. Touched by the wholesome moment, he's just heading back to his room when he hears another gut-wrenching scream echoing through the vents. And turning around, he's surprised to find this nice old lady lady Norma standing right behind him. The woman says that she was also having some trouble sleeping, and asking if he'd like some company, she invites him back into her room for a late night chat. Noticing something on the floor, he picks up a small wooden object and mentions that it looks familiar, with Norma explaining that it came from a friend who used to live at the home. That's when he points out a half-ripped painting on the wall, and the woman explains that it was painted by her son, who passed away many years ago. He ripped it up one night after the two of them got into a big fight, but ended up dying before they could ever make amends. And now she says that the guilt has been haunting her ever since. Okay, now that Norma's done trauma dumping, something about these old people is very suspicious. I mean, they were barely acknowledging Max yesterday, but now they're all like, wanna be friends? And where were those mimosas and Bloody Marys they were drinking? Well, what kind of nursing home is serving alcohol at 7:15 in the AM? Because I'm going there when I get that age. It's time for Max to start asking questions, and Norma here just gave us the first important clue. You see, she might seem like a regular old lady at first, but that little object Max found on her floor tells us a different story. It looks like a miniature goblet or chalice. You know, like the fancy cups that kings used to drink from. So it's just a little wooden cup, right? Maybe, but the important thing is what the cup represents. You see, back in the day, goblets were used for celebrations and rituals. You've probably heard of the Holy Grail, an ancient chalice with the powers of healing and eternal life, yeah? But in occult practices, chalices were often used as a vessel for rituals and sacrifices associated with the black magics. Now, Max mentioned that it looked familiar, but he didn't remember that there's a statue holding a goblet right outside the front door, and the way I see it, there's absolutely no way that this is a coincidence, and it's our first big sign that something a lot bigger is going on here. Norma mentioned the chalice was carved by her old friend Esther, so that makes her a good first place to start. First, I'd try and figure out which room used to be hers, and then get in there and search the place for any clues. He should also check the home's records for Esther's full name and any important notes about her condition. Then he can run her name through a Google search to see if any articles come up and try to get in touch with anyone from her family who still might be alive. But until then, he needs to be careful who he trusts, and that's including his new friend Norma here. She may seem like an innocent old lady, but this is a classic strategy used by cults and other evil organizations. They could have sent in a friendly face to trick Max into letting his guard down, and the next thing that he knew, he would be waking up in a basement with a missing kidney. That doesn't mean he shouldn't try to keep things friendly though, but he needs to treat everyone like a suspect until he either finishes his 4 months here, or he finds a reason to get out early. The next day, Max finds Lou as he's wrapping up an acting class with a bunch of his fellow old folks. Eager to talk his ear off, he says that they do whatever they can to keep themselves busy because getting bored is what really kills them in the end. Just then, they're interrupted by one of the other workers who pulls Max away to help with a cleanup on the 3rd floor. But as he's mopping up the strange puddle of liquid, he hears another scream from somewhere upstairs, and this time he decides to check it out. First, he tries going up the elevator, but when that doesn't work, he decides to take the stairs instead. And it's locked, of course, but all he needs is a bobby pin and a credit card, and he's able to get through the door, no problemo. Creeping down the hall, he comes to a large open room where the patients have all been stuck in wheelchairs and left to rot in front of a television. Looking around, he notices that they're all bleeding, rotting, and dripping with some kind of strange orange goo. Ugh. But that's when an old man at the far side of the room catches his eye. Looking up, the man points right at him and starts shouting as he jumps out of his chair. Max tries to calm him down, but the man stumbles forward and grabs him by the shoulders just as the other workers come running towards the noise. And furious, they immediately rush to pull Max off, shouting at him to get back downstairs. Knowing that he's in very big trouble, he waits nervously for the doctor to call him into his office, explaining that he only went upstairs because he was afraid that someone might be in danger. I mean, it is a decent excuse, except for the fact that he picked the lock to get up there. So the doctor warns him not to mess up again unless he wants to go to jail. Alright, we might not know too much about Max yet, but what I do know is that things probably wouldn't have turned out the way they did if he just got a good night's sleep. Thankfully, that's something that I never have to worry about thanks to today's sponsor, Titan Mattress. You guys, the timing on this sponsorship couldn't have been better. My girl and I have been doing research for months to find the right new mattress for us, and I don't know if you've bought a mattress lately, but it can be kind of tough.
Sounds like it's inflating.
Especially if you're a big dude like me. But Titan mattresses deliver serious support without sacrificing any comfort. Their heavy-duty coils and high-quality foam make this bad boy S tier for sure. It's quality that you can feel and a price that won't break your back. So I just got their Titan Plus Luxe, and it's a total game changer. I'm a hot sleeper and a side sleeper, and this truly is the first mattress that I've ever felt comfortable on. Plus, you guys know me, I'm always watching horror movies for the channel, so I gotta have a mattress that's comfy enough to sit through these films and cozy enough to keep me in dreamland. Even when some of the boogans sneak into my dreams, or if my kiddos are screaming in the other room. Plus, Kilo, yeah, he's a huge fan. He straight up won't sleep in his doggy bed anymore because he loves sharing the Titan with your boy. Y'all gotta get on the Titan train. And look, they offer a limited lifetime warranty and have a 120-night sleep trial. And let's be honest, you're gonna love it anyways. The mattresses get shipped directly from their factory in Arizona to your door, and if our producer from Arizona is to be believed, everything from Arizona is peak. But for real, I love this thing, and I think you would too. If you're looking for a quality mattress, check out titanmattress.com/HTB, or scan the QR code to get 30% off your order with code HTB, or simply click the link below. I hope you guys can check it out, and now back to bed. I mean, back to the show. Oh, and take it from me, player. The maidens are gonna love it. Now, okay, I'm sorry, but if anyone's worried about going to jail here, it should be the doctor and his crew of negligent nurses. I mean, that shit was definitely not up to code, and if Max had any common sense, he'd realize that the doctor is up to no good. It's true that Max technically had no reason to be up there. I mean, it's tragic, but in a facility that cares for these kind of patients, screaming at random hours of the day would be totally normal and expected. In a normal environment, you might hear someone scream and run to check it out, but in a nursing home, that kind of stuff happens all the time. And they already have nurses assigned to the area who are supposed to be trained to deal with that kind of stuff. So the smartest way for Max to get through his 4 months would be to follow the rules, ignore any random screams, and avoid asking too many questions. But with that being said, what he just saw up there was definitely not normal. Not at all. The condition that they're keeping those patients in isn't just creepy, it's like literally illegal. And they've got old timers in advanced stages of decay with blood and orange ooze coming out of open wounds and skin that looks like it's about to rot right off their bones. And the nurses are just letting it happen. Now I see why Max wasn't allowed up there, because if the state health department were to find out, this place would probably immediately be shut down, and everyone who works there would be facing criminal charges. Meanwhile, the doctor is treating it like it's a perfectly normal and healthy situation, yelling at Max like he's the one who did something wrong. But the truth is that after what he's just seen, Max has every reason to report this place to the police right away, because what he's seen easily qualifies for gross medical neglect and systemic abuse. As soon as he gets back to his room, I'd get straight on the phone with his probation officer and tell them everything. Then they'd send in the professionals to get this place shut down, and Max could get transferred to a different job before he ends up in even more trouble. One night, Max is busy doing his rounds when he comes across the old people having a big tiki party by the pool. It looks like it's absolutely popping the off in there, so he's surprised to find that his buddy Norma isn't joining the festivities. She mentions hearing about his adventures up on the 4th floor and tells her that the patients there looked like they could use some help. Taking his hand, she says that he feels that way because a heart knows a heart, but tells him not to worry about the ones upstairs, saying that they're already way too far gone. In the morning, Max wakes up from yet another terrifying nightmare and finds his buddy Lou shooting pool in the rec room. The man quickly notices that he looks pretty exhausted, and the kid explains that he hasn't gotten much sleep since he got there. Brushing it off, Lou mentions a rumor that the home does something with the oxygen levels to help the old people sleep, but when Max looks out to the hall, he notices Norma arguing with the doctor about something that looks kinda serious. Worried, he stops by the woman's room later that evening as she's getting ready for one of their monthly murder mystery nights. When he asks about what happened between her and the staff, she tries to play it off like it was no big deal, but everything changes when Max says that he brought her something. As a way to thank her for being so nice to him, he finished the other half of her favorite painting, saying that he tried to get it as close as he could to her son's original design. Touched by the kind gesture, that's when Norma finally decides to spill the beans, and pulling him in closer, she starts warning him that this nursing home is not what it looks like. Apparently, the place has some kind of dangerous secret, and she warns him that he needs to get out of there before it's too late. But no Noticing that one of the staff is watching them, she hurriedly cuts things short and shuts the door in his face. Now unsure of what to do, Max paces around his room for a while thinking about what the old woman said, until hours later he realizes that she never really came back from that group event. Suspicious, he finds this nurse Juno and asks where she's gone, only to find out that she's been taken to the sick ward after her diabetes started acting up. The nurse reassures him that it's all good, but he can't shake the feeling that there's more to this story, and soon his worst fears are about to come true. The next morning, Max is out blowing the leaves in a half-awake state when he notices the crazy guy from the 4th floor banging on the window, and strangely enough, he starts biting his finger as if he's trying to write a message with the blood, when all of a sudden a terrifying scream breaks the silence as a woman's body tumbles from the roof and lands straight on the iron fence. It's Norma, and too horrified to react, Max just stands there speechless as the EMTs roll her away. The doctor shows up with a note that apparently explains why she did it, but as Max looks around at the crowd, he gets the feeling that somebody here is not telling the truth. Well, I guess somebody forgot to tell Norma here that the skydiving trip got moved to Thursday. She clearly wanted to tell Max something before her unfortunate accident, but now it looks like he's gonna have to figure things out for himself. If it were me, the first thing I'd try to do is get a copy or a picture of this note so we can reference it later. Then he needs to search the old lady's room before they clear it out. Now, since she died under suspicious circumstances, the police are going to turn her room into a crime scene. So he'll need to wait for the right opportunity before heading inside. He should also wear gloves so he won't leave any, because he doesn't want to make himself look guilty by getting caught. Now, once he's inside, he needs to start searching the place up and down for any clues, starting with the most obvious places, like the woman's desk, nightstand, and closet, before moving on to the less obvious places like under furniture or behind the paintings on the walls. I would even check behind electrical outlets and inside her toilet tank, because you never know where you might find a secret journal or a demonic totem stashed away. Now, if we manage to find a sample of the woman's handwriting, then we can also compare it against the note using handwriting analysis. The key here is to look for the subtle differences in the writing, like the shape and size of the letters, the spacing of the words, or little things like how she dots her I's and crosses her T's. If he notices any differences at all, he'll be able to figure out if the note was actually written by Norma or if it was just faked by somebody else. And he could take things one step further by comparing the note to samples from the staff and other patients to see if it matches up. Now, after seeing what they did to Norma when she let the cat out of the bag, I'd be packing my bags and getting the hell out of there before they come and get me next. But since Max still can't leave without getting in trouble with his PO, he needs to be even more careful while he keeps an eye out for any solid proof that this place is not what it seems. At the woman's memorial service, Max finds Lou sitting alone in the adjoining room and asks if he sees anything suspicious about what happened. But one of the nurses overhears what he's saying and starts listening in on them from across the room. That's when Lou drifts off into a 1,000-yard stare as his muscles tense up and his face starts to twitch. But Max finally snaps him out of it and brings him back to reality. After another terrifying nightmare, Max wakes up in the middle of the night to find a strange black cylinder sitting by his bedroom door. Confused, he starts messing with the object and realizes that it's actually a UV light. He still isn't sure who left it there or what they want him to do with it, but when he turns around, he discovers an invisible message written above his bed telling him that he needs to find the marked ones. Sneaking into Lou's room, he starts shining the light on his body to check for this mark, but at first he can't seem to find anything, and frustrated, he's just about to leave when the man rolls over, and that's when he spots an invisible X painted on the back of his neck. In the morning, Max starts looking at things from an entirely new perspective, and sure enough, he starts noticing more and more of the patients walking around itching the back of their necks. Looking for answers, he decides to take a peek inside Norma's room, only to find that the entire place has already been cleaned out. Just then, he's confronted by the head nurse, Les, who's furious at him for trespassing when the room was clearly taped off. He says that he's obligated to tell the doctor, but Max plays it off as he was just looking for something to remember her by, and saying that he understands, the nurse decides to let it slide. After learning that Norma's stuff was brought down to the incinerator, Max decides to make that his next stop, so he heads down to the basement to see what he can find. It doesn't take him long before he uncovers a fancy-looking box, and inside he finds the mysterious wooden object that he noticed several nights ago. He also finds the woman's diary, and flipping to the last page, he learns that Norma was worried about some mysterious group that's been conducting experiments on the patients late at night. Shocked, he immediately rushes upstairs to tell Lou what he's found. But when he gets to the room, he finds the man sitting with his back to the door, and as he looks closer, he realizes that he's been binge-eating candy bars. Which is when Lou spins around with blood all over his hands, revealing that he's been pulling his own teeth out as punishment for letting himself go. It looks like he's completely lost it since Norma's death, and Max struggles to hold him back until the other nurses finally get there. Horrified, he watches through the door as the doctors take care of Lou, but now he's fully convinced that there's not a single person that he can trust. Alright, now Max is right to not trust the doctors, but that needs to extend to the patients as well. I mean, after all, his buddy Lou here was a professional actor, so if anyone's capable of pulling the wool over Max's eyes, it's gonna be him. And since he only started acting strange after Max mentioned foul play, we need to actually consider if he's been changed by the trauma, or if this all just really is an act. Well, there's only one way to find out, and with Lou in the infirmary, this gives Max the perfect opportunity to search his room for evidence. He'll want to use the same strategies that we mentioned before, like checking his desk, dresser, nightstand, but also looking under furniture, behind pictures, and even inside the vents. With any luck, he just might find a secret journal, an invisible message, or some other strange object that points him to a new lead. But speaking of invisible messages, I wouldn't be so quick to trust this mysterious person with the UV light either, because if they were already in his room, then why not just wake him up and tell him what the hell is going on? It's suspicious, and between that and what he read in Norma's journal, I'd be ready to run for the hills before this gets any worse. But like we mentioned before, Max will end up in jail if he tries to leave without any permission, so unfortunately it looks like he's stuck here until he can find some proof. Now earlier, Max mentioned that he's been having trouble sleeping at night, and Lou brushed it off as having something to do with the oxygen levels, but this theory does not add up. Now if you were trying to make old people sleepy, you'd actually want to reduce the oxygen levels and increase the CO2, but no actual nursing home would ever risk doing this because it's just not ethical, and it's not approved by anyone. This actually makes me wonder about the incident on the first night where Max found his door open. Like, maybe that's not the only time that somebody has stopped by, and if that's true, then Max can set up a trap. But before bed tonight, I'd put a decoy under the covers, then hide in the closet until the intruder enters the room. Then he'll have a chance to jump them and find out what they know, and ultimately fight his way out of this place if that's what he's gotta do. Determined to get some answers, Max goes back to his room and starts running the doctor's name through a Google search, when he learns that the man had been working on some kind of experimental brain surgery. What's strange is that he keeps getting pop-ups from an anonymous account asking if he's seen the light, and when the messages keep popping up, he decides to click the link and see what happens. It opens up to a webcam showing a dilapidated room where a woman dressed in party clothes lies slumped against a bed. As she gets closer, he realizes that her face is horrifically deformed, and she starts speaking in a garbled voice until the connection suddenly drops out. Getting a new idea, he decides to order a bunch of tiny hidden cameras and start placing them around the building. He's just opening the box when his laptop comes to life on its own, and he sees that it's the same faceless woman from the other night, and starts asking him to be careful, saying that she needs his help. The video cuts off when somebody opens the door to her room. He's going about his rounds, and Max walks over to the old-fashioned radio and quietly places a camera down with a view of the entire room, and just then he's startled when Lou comes sneaking up behind him. Strangely, the man says that he's afraid that he might disappear, but Max reassures him that he's going to get to the bottom of it. Throughout the day, he keeps leaving cameras in different places all around the building, allowing him to watch everything that happens for the rest of the night. As he's flipping through the cameras, he spots the crazy old guy from the 4th floor in the middle of a jailbreak, but since Max here is no snitch, he decides not to raise the alarm. Hours go by with nothing else happening, and Max eventually falls asleep despite trying to stay awake, but he's woken up by the sound of a door closing in the hall. Checking the camera, he sees Nurse Juno and the old woman walking out of her room, and wheeling her over to the elevator, she meets up with Les and the doctor as they take her down to the basement. And it's sketchy enough that they have a guard patrolling the hallway with his dog, but worried that they'll hurt the woman if he doesn't stop them, Max decides that he needs to get involved. Now let's just stop right there, buddy boy. Max has absolutely no idea what he's about to get himself into, and he needs to think twice before rushing down there without a plan. It might seem like he already has enough evidence to go straight to the police, but the truth is actually a lot more complicated. Unfortunately, he's a low credibility witness, and Norma's journal just doesn't give him any real proof. So right now, the best thing he has is the email with the link to the webcam, because the police could use it to trace the sender's IP address. But they'd need a warrant first, and they might not want to be willing willing to go that far without more evidence. For all he knows, Max could be the only person who's ever learned this much, and that's why he needs to be extra careful, because if he gets caught, he's not just putting his own life at risk, but all of the lives of the people he could have saved if he was able to shut this place down. So with all that being said, this would be a good time to have one of the patients as a friend, because then he could use them as a lookout while he snuck down to the basement. But the problem is there's not a single person he can trust, so it looks like he'll have to handle this one alone. First, we need to start with his loadout. There's no need to bring a weapon this time since he's not looking for a fight. All he needs are his phone, the master key, the UV light, and his lockpicking tools. But now that they have a dog in play, it isn't just the nurses he'll have to worry about. This means he needs to be even more careful about how he moves. So instead of running down the hall at full speed, he should be taking it slowly, hugging the walls and sticking to the shadows. As he goes, I'd stop every few feet to listen for footsteps, squeaky wheels, or dog noises, and use janitor closets or storage rooms to hide or sneak past the patrols. But whatever happens down there, Max can't risk getting directly involved. His job is to document what he sees and get out of there safely without being caught. As soon as he gets proof, he needs to sneak back to his room with the evidence and continue to play dumb until he gets a chance to contact the authorities. Hustling over to the stairs, Max is in such a hurry that he doesn't even notice the man from the 4th floor sneaking down the hall. He reaches a locked door where he can hear the woman screaming as the doctor fires up some kind of loud machine, but the guard catches him peeking through the window, forcing Max to get out of there before he's caught. So back in his room, he's surprised to find a mysterious figure lurking in the shadows. It's the woman from the webcam, and apparently she has something that he needs to see. Holding out a stack of files, she explains that the nursing home is actually funded by the US government, and they've been using old people as test subjects for all kinds of up experiments. Telling him to follow her, she opens the door only to find the insane patient from the 4th floor waiting on the other side. Max tries to help as the man lunges straight at her, but in the chaos, he whacks his head on the nightstand and gets knocked out cold. Waking up, he finds himself in the infirmary with Nurse Juno watching over him. She mentions that the doctor wants to see him for some tests, but as soon as she leaves the room, Max grabs his things and disappears through the window before she can come back. He eventually manages to make his way back home, and Max is relieved to be back with his own family, but everything changes when his foster mom Sylvia repeats the phrase, "A heart knows a heart." It's the exact same thing that Norma told him back at the home, and now he's absolutely sure that his foster parents are hiding something big. As soon as they're gone, he gets up and starts searching the place for any kind of evidence, but no matter where he looks, he can't seem to find anything. But that's when his new foster sisters ask if he's looking for the secret place. Taking him upstairs, they open a secret panel at the back of a closet that leads into a hidden room, and inside the place is absolutely full of strange ritualistic objects. It looks like some kind of shrine actually, and it's covered in little wooden goblets just like the one he found in Norma's room. Looking closer, he sees that it's a shrine to Dia, the Roman goddess of youth. Not only that, but they've got photo albums full of pictures from different parties at the home, and that's when he makes the most horrifying discoveries thus far. Opening one of the albums, he sees them gathered around his foster brother Luke, who his parents said has died while he was away at college. And now he knows that they've been part of the cult all along. Furious, Max tears pages out of the book and decides that he's going back to the nursing home to put an end to this once and for all. Okay, now this actually might be the worst idea that Max has ever had. He wants to save his brother before these cultish freaks turn him into a full-blown vegetable. But if he's as reckless as he was the last time, then they're both gonna end up dead. Now, there's no reason to rush back to the home right away. The better strategy here is to wait until nighttime, when the patients are all in their rooms, the staff are working with the skeleton crew, and he can use the darkness for cover. This, of course, means that he has time to prepare, but he can't stay here because he just found out that his foster parents are in the f***ing cult. He needs to get the f*** out of there before they get back. So if it were me, I would grab my things, turn off my phone so they couldn't track me, and get over to one of the old flop houses where he can hide out until nightfall. While he's there, he could try recruiting some of his delinquent friends to use as lookouts or meat shields, if things go south, that is. I mean, it might be hard to convince them that these old people are running a secret cult, but since they already want to fight the system, some of them might be down to help. But now that he knows these old people worship Dia, the Roman goddess of youth, there might be a way he can turn this belief against them. You see, every god in ancient Rome had its counter, and since these cultists are obsessed with eternal life, Max can choose Pluto, the Roman god of the underworld, as his champion champion for the next battle. In the photo album, we see the cultists drawing chalices on their heads to represent the goddess, so Max should use his painting skills to make himself a shirt with the image of Pluto's key. I mean, I'm not expecting it to give him magical powers or something, but if the cultists see this and recognize it, then it might give him a psychological advantage. But for the more hands-on stuff, Max should equip himself with a crowbar, some bolt cutters, a flashlight, and some pepper spray, just in case of a fight. Then, once it's late enough, he needs to get back inside through a back door and quietly sneak through the building without being detected. Once he gets to his brother, the priority is to get him out as quickly as possible. I mean, he can't really save them all, so he needs to find Luke, get as much evidence as he can, and send the police back for the others. But as a last resort, I would also consider releasing the other patients if he needs to create some chaos, and using them as distraction while he and Luke make their escape. That night, Max sneaks back into the building and makes his way up to the 4th floor. He finds his brother Luke sitting in the wheelchair, and rushing over, he explains that he finally understands what's been happening. It turns out that Luke was just trying to help, but he had no way of showing him the truth until now. Taking out the photos, Max shows his brother the pictures, and with his help, he realizes that every single one of these patients was once a victim of the cult. Just then, Luke tries to warn him that someone is coming, but he doesn't understand until it's too late, and Les sneaks up and sticks a needle full of sedatives into his neck, knocking him out with no way to fight back. When he wakes up, he finds himself cuffed to a wheelchair in the middle of the dining room, with all of the old folks gathered around for a big group picture. And that's when he learns the horrifying truth. It turns out that every single one of them was in on it, from his buddy Lou to the doctor and all of the staff, and they've been playing him like a fool this entire time. Taking center stage, Lou congratulates them all on a job well done, and he learns that the strange woman from the webcam was actually the doctor's wife all along. The only question is, why? And that's when the doctor steps forward to give him the answer. The truth is that they're all cult members who've been draining his youth to keep themselves alive, and there's nothing he can do to escape as they all break out into a wild chant. The next thing he knows, Max wakes up strapped to an operating table with the entire crowd of old people gathered around. Leaning over, the doctor reveals that they're after the nectar from a small sac behind his eye, explaining that it keeps them youthful, but eventually runs out with age. They're all over 100 years old thanks to the youth that they've been stealing from their victims. They've been secretly draining it from him bit by bit every night, but now that the cat's out of the bag, they're about to take everything that he has left. Furious, Max warns them that they better finish the job, swearing to get revenge if he ever gets the chance, but they don't seem very concerned about his empty threats. Pinning him down, all he can do is watch as the doctor forces his eye open and pushes a giant needle inside, draining every drop of his youth out of his body until he's left feeling like a 100-year-old man. Waking up again, this time Max finds himself up on the 4th floor, and it isn't long before his old buddy Lou shows up to rub it in. He explains that Norma actually wanted to help him, so they pushed her off the building and concocted the whole government conspiracy story just to mess with his head. But they aren't done with him yet, because they're going to keep draining his youth until he's got absolutely nothing left. Okay, well, that plan couldn't have possibly gone any worse. It looks like these old people just played him like a game of Fortnite, and now that Max is off to join his brother in the vegetable aisle, there's only one thing left to say, but it's sorry, Max, you f***ed up. They say if you can't do the time, then don't do the crime, and man, that saying has never been more true than it is here. Although, at least if you went to jail, you'd probably be getting out in like a year or two at most. But now, a cult of crazy boomers is about to keep you locked up for eternity while they slowly squeeze you out like a damn tube of toothpaste. It's pretty hard to make the county jail look like a 5-star resort, but I'd rather be locked up with Hannibal Lecter than spend one night with these freaks. I mean, at least he's a good cook, right? Like, anyways, let's be real. There was something fishy about this place from day one, but instead of making any smart decisions to protect yourself, you just kept falling for one trick after another, like an 80-year-old grandma getting scammed out of her life savings. Credit where credit is due, okay? The decision to bail out of the window might have been the smartest thing you've ever done, but after barely escaping from these psychos the first time, you decided to go back with no backup, no plan, and not even so much as a toothpick to defend yourself if something happened. I mean, I get wanting to go back to save your brother, your actual blood relative, but next time maybe don't make as much noise as humanly possible while you're still in the f***ing danger zone, my guy. Anyways, sorry Max, but now it looks like you're trapped in here forever and you f***ed up totally. Or at least that's what they think. But what none of them realize is that Luke here is about to pull one of the most clutch moves of all time. The next time that Max wakes up, he's surprised to find his brother Luke sitting across from him. Reaching down, the man breaks off a thin piece of metal from his wheelchair and starts going around to each of the other patients, collecting as much of the youth juice as he can. Taking the jar over to his brother, he starts pouring the disgusting yellow liquid down his throat to restore his energy, and now it's time for Max to finally get his revenge. Hours later, a massive hurricane rolls in, leaving everyone trapped in the building. The nurse Juno comes to check on the patients, but before she even knows what's about to happen, Max charges up from behind and starts stabbing her over and over again straight through the neck. Finding a toolbox, he grabs a hatchet and hammer as he sets off the fire alarm, taking the elevator down to the second floor where he starts absolutely massacring anyone who crosses his path. On the stairwell, he finds Juno and Les trying to get away, but he hits the woman with a perfect axe throw that sends her flying to the bottom of the steps. Les puts up a bit more of a fight, but he's quickly overwhelmed as Max pins him against the wall and drives the hammer straight into his nuts, before grabbing the hatchet out of Juno's face and brutally finishing him off. Hearing all the chaos, Lou tries to hide in the closet, but Max finds his ass and drags him out to the hall as he begs for his life. Reaching the rec room, he finds the doctor waiting with a pistol, but he uses Lou as a meat shield to block the bullets, closing the distance and snapping the man's wrist with his bare hands, before pistol whipping him to death with his own gun. His foster parents rush outside, but their escape is cut short when a piece of the roof suddenly flies off and cuts them both in half. While back upstairs, Max drags the doctor's wife into his office and puts her straight through the window, killing off the last of these sick freaks once and for all, but he's not done yet. Gathering up the cult members, he drains the youth juice out of their eyes, giving it back to the patients on the 4th floor and setting them all free. In the end, that makes one cult down with a bunch of elderly survivors as Max and his brother walk back into the daylight, but it looks like he just learned a very valuable lesson. Next time, he might be better off just going straight to jail. The Home 2025, brand new movie, and you know, I just know some freaky ass shit like this goes down in nursing homes all the time. I've been in a couple nursing homes throughout my life, and I'm always like, what is going on behind these closed doors? Don't just tell me it's a broom closet. I already know old people are into like freaky sex, demonic cults, and whatever the hell else you can get up to in your twilight years. So don't fucking play with me, man. But anyways, I'm sure you guys have already thought of more unique and exciting ways that they could have beaten the home, so you gotta let me know what they are down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. Check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm your boy. We'll see you in the next video and have a dizam good dizzy. You feel me?